Deepwater Horizon, April 20th, 2010, a day of catastrophe. A massive explosion at sea would claim 11 lives, while the Gulf of Mexico faced permanent ecological devastation, all at the hands of a profit-driven oil giant willing to cut corners at any cost. The Macondo was a highly developed oil rig, nicknamed the Well from Hell, getting this name from the numerous problems and warnings that would occur with it. In 2008, this rig would be hired by the global oil and gas company BP as a part of a desperate strategy to aggressively gather as many resources as they could, facing pressure to find new oil sources. There were many concerns and warnings about the operation and the rig, such as faulty cement seals, equipment issues, and other safety concerns, all of which would be brushed aside and ignored by the oil giant, who decided to cut corners due to time delays and budget constraints. At 9:45 p.m. on April 20th, 2010, surges of oil and gas erupted from the rig, causing a blowout. A specialized piece of hardware called a blowout preventer failed to activate. Methane gas spread across the rig and ignited, causing a huge explosion and then a fire. 11 people were killed instantly, while many survivors would jump into the water. The well continued to burn for 2 entire days and then sank into the water, leaving it gushing oil into the ocean. The sunk rig would release around 60,000 barrels of oil per day into the ocean for an entire 87 days, the largest in history, with efforts to stop the leak falling short during this time. Oil spread across the Gulf of Mexico, contaminating water, beaches, and shorelines of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Marine life and ocean ecosystems suffered the most, killing off much of the ocean life, including whales, dolphins, birds, and other marine species. All of this led to long-term ecological damage. Fixing the oil leak would be a huge problem, involving 47,000 personnel, 7,000 vessels, and 125 aircraft, with the first attempts to stop it not working at all. On July 12, 2010, BP was able to stop the leak, but the damage was already done. The Gulf of Mexico showed signs of recovery, but many ecosystems remain permanently damaged. In the aftermath, BP was found guilty of gross negligence and willful misconduct, paying a $4.5 billion criminal fine, the largest in U.S. history. Today, the wreckage of Deepwater Horizon still remains sunk at the bottom of the ocean as a symbol of this disaster. Opioid crisis. A pill designed to ease pain would kill 500,000 people, destroy countless lives, and cause $1 trillion in damages. This engineered disaster would be one of the worst man-made epidemics, all fueled by greed. In the early 1990s, prescription opioids began to be aggressively marketed, downplaying and ignoring their high addiction risks. These marketing campaigns were spearheaded by major pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma, Johnson & Johnson, and Insys Therapeutics. These corporations pushed opioids aggressively, even offering financial incentives to doctors who prescribe the drugs more frequently. They also funded medical education courses that emphasized the benefits of opioids while continuing to mislead the public about their addictive nature. By the 2000s, opioids were widely prescribed for all levels of pain, not just severe cases. From 1999 to 2010, opioid prescriptions in the U.S. quadrupled. Millions of Americans became dependent on opioids, and addiction rates soared. By 2015, overdose deaths surpassed those from car accidents. Since the push began in 1999, opioid overdose-related deaths have exceeded 500,000. This widespread addiction led to severe health issues, including depression, infections, and mental health crises. The epidemic also took a significant toll on the U.S. economy, causing nearly $1 trillion in damage through healthcare costs, lost productivity, and criminal justice expenses. Regulatory and legal failures by the FDA allowed pharmaceutical companies to continue promoting these harmful drugs for years. Although the FDA eventually began cracking down and regulating these practices, the damage was already done. Purdue Pharma faced thousands of lawsuits, resulting in a $6 billion settlement, though the company admitted no wrongdoing. The crisis has since expanded globally, affecting parts of the world like India and China, where regulation is often lacking. The opioid crisis remains a scandal fueled by corporate greed, regulatory failures, and systemic neglect. Its devastating impact continues to haunt individuals, families, and entire communities. COVID-19. In late 2019, whispers of a new virus began to emerge from Wuhan, China. Initial reports from Chinese authorities and the WHO claimed the virus was not transmissible between humans, downplaying the situation. By the time the Chinese government admitted the virus was contagious, it was already too late. It had spread to multiple countries. As the virus spread globally, governments struggled to manage the epidemic. Many downplayed the virus, leading to delayed lockdowns. A flood of misinformation appeared online about the effectiveness of masks and social distancing. Conspiracy theories and political polarization further fueled confusion and the spread of misinformation. Meanwhile, big pharmaceutical companies rushed to develop vaccines for the virus, selling them at high prices despite receiving substantial public funding for their creation. As the virus eventually began to subside, the mishandling of the crisis came to light. Pharmaceutical companies prioritized profits over public health concerns, early warning signs were ignored, and political and economic considerations were valued more than protecting lives. The entire epidemic reveals how greed and political agendas shape human action, affecting billions, and how power and profit are prioritized over public health. Facebook. Your private data wasn't private. It was sold, weaponized, and used to manipulate your beliefs. This is how Facebook became a tool for political control. Facebook is the world's biggest social media platform, connecting billions of people worldwide. It is a company that makes billions from collecting user data and targeted advertising. A significant part of Facebook's business model relies on allowing third-party developers to create apps that access users' data. In 2013, Alexander Kogan, a Cambridge University researcher, developed a personality quiz app called This Is Your Digital Life. The app used Facebook's API to collect data not only from users who took the quiz, but also from their friends' profiles, thanks to Facebook's lax privacy policies at the time. As a result, Kogan harvested data from tens of millions of users, approximately 87 million, according to some estimates. Kogan decided to sell this data to Cambridge Analytica, a political consulting firm specializing in using user data to create highly specific, emotion-driven political advertisements. These ads were based on detailed profiles generated from processing the collected user data. In 2015, Facebook learned about the data sale and requested that Cambridge Analytica delete the information. However, no further action was taken, perhaps an effort to conceal their mishandling of sensitive data. Everything changed in March 2018 when a former employee of Cambridge Analytica revealed the full extent of the data misuse. He explained how Cambridge Analytica used Facebook data to create detailed voter profiles and deliver misleading, fear-driven ads designed to manipulate public opinion. Facebook's role in this was critical, as their lack of robust privacy protections enabled this entire operation. This led to widespread criticism of Facebook for prioritizing profit over user safety. The scandal sparked outrage, exposing the immense power social media platforms hold over society and how they can be weaponized to manipulate people. Russian doping. Behind every medal lies a story, but in Russia's case, that story was one of deceit, intimidation, and a system built to cheat the world. In the early 2010s, a pair of whistleblowers revealed that Russian athletes had been cheating by using performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs, for decades, in a scheme that was state-sponsored and widespread. In 2014, German broadcaster ARD released a documentary titled Secret Doping: How Russia Makes Its Winners. The film exposed the systemic nature of doping in Russia, relying heavily on evidence and testimonies from the two whistleblowers. The World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, began investigating these claims the same year. In 2015, WADA published a report exposing that the Russian Ministry of Sport, with support from the Russian Federal Security Service FSB, had created doping programs for their athletes. Russian officials tampered with urine samples, manipulated testing procedures, and even intimidated and threatened whistleblowers to keep the operation hidden. Even more shocking revelations came from Dr. Grigory Rodchenkov, the former head of Moscow's anti-doping laboratory, who defected to the USA in 2016. Rodchenkov detailed how the FSB developed a method to swap positive PED test samples with clean ones, even going so far as to drill holes in the walls of doping labs to smuggle clean samples into the testing process. The scandal caused an international uproar, leading to numerous sanctions and punishments for Russia. The Russian track and field team was banned from the 2016 Olympics, and at the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, Russian athletes could only compete under the neutral banner of Olympic athletes from Russia if they could prove they were clean. Beyond these bans, many Russian athletes were stripped of the medals they had won. Russia continued to deny the state-sponsored doping, labeling the whistleblowers as traitors. The entire scandal highlighted the lengths some nations will go to gain an unfair advantage in athletic success and revealed the deep entanglement of politics in sports. The NSA leak. What if every call you made, every email you sent, and every website you visited was being tracked? In 2013, a systems administrator exposed one of the world's most secretive organizations. What he revealed shocked the world and changed how we think about privacy forever. The NSA was formed during the Cold War and operated in secrecy. After the September 11th attacks, the agency gained significantly more power and outreach, allowing it to monitor global communications to prevent terrorism, all of this happening without public knowledge. A systems administrator named Edward Snowden discovered the extent of the mass surveillance and began collecting and downloading classified documents that exposed widespread violations of individuals' privacy rights. In June 2013, Snowden fled to Hong Kong, where he shared his findings with journalists. Some of the evidence was shocking, such as PRISM program. This program enabled the NSA to collect data directly from the servers of major tech companies like Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. It included emails, video calls, photos, and documents, all without users' consent or knowledge. Mass phone records collection. The NSA gathered the phone records of millions of Americans, including metadata such as call times, durations, and recipients, regardless of whether the individuals were under suspicion. X-Keyscore, a powerful tool that allowed analysts to search vast databases of online activity, including emails, browsing histories, and social media content, without needing warrants. The revelations shocked the world. Many were outraged by the scale of the invisible surveillance and the wrongful invasion of privacy. The leak permanently changed the relationship between citizens, technology, and governments. FIFA scandal. FIFA, the world's largest sports organization, wasn't just managing the beautiful game, it was running a machine of bribes, backdoor deals, and corruption that betrayed the trust of billions of fans, tainting the sport for decades. In the early 2010s, concerns began to grow about FIFA's lack of transparency. After the announcements of the 2018 World Cup in Russia and the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, public suspicions about how these countries secured hosting rights intensified. The Qatar decision, in particular, was controversial due to the country's lack of football heritage and extreme climate conditions. Speculation pointed toward bribery and vote buying. Investigative journalists, along with whistleblowers, revealed that FIFA officials had accepted bribes from multiple host countries, including a $10 million bribe from South Africa for the hosting rights of the 2010 World Cup. On May 27, 2015, Swiss police raided a luxury hotel in Zurich, arresting 7 high-ranking FIFA officials. The charges included money laundering, bribery, racketeering, and wire fraud, with over $150 million in bribes and kickbacks traced over a span of 24 years. As the investigation unfolded, more details emerged about the lavish lifestyles of the corrupt officials, who hid their illicit gains in offshore accounts, bought luxury real estate, and funded extravagant vacations. In response, FIFA reformed its voting process and introduced stricter financial regulations. However, the organization's reputation remains severely damaged after this massive scandal. Watergate. Watergate is one of the biggest political scandals in world history, leading to the first and only resignation of a U.S. president. This scandal exposed systemic abuses of power within the highest levels of government. On June 17, 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters. These burglars were caught wiretapping phones and attempting to steal documents. It soon became evident that these burglars were linked to President Nixon. Nixon's administration attempted to use hush money to silence those involved and pressured the FBI to downplay the situation. A key moment in the scandal came when White House aide Alexander Butterfield revealed the existence of a secret taping system in the Oval Office. The tapes, which Nixon had recorded, contained potentially incriminating evidence of his involvement in the cover-up. In one of the tapes, Nixon was heard discussing plans to obstruct the FBI's investigation. With impeachment almost certain and losing most of his political support, Nixon became the first U.S. president to resign. Watergate deeply damaged public trust in the government. The scandal remains one of the most significant in American history, illustrating how unchecked power and influence can lead to corruption.